My name is Erin Ashlager. I am 27, and when I was adopted, I was 3. But I was with them ever since I was 10 days old. My mom was schizophrenic. She could not take care of me, and my father had passed away 4 days prior to my birthday, and he actually got buried on the day I was born. So there was a lot of commotion going on with my actual family. And my grandparents took on my sisters, and they didn't want to take on a baby because they were old. So I got put up for adoption right away. And I guess they fell in love with me and they're like, we want to keep this baby. And they changed my name and everything. My name wasn't Erin at first, it was Renee. And then they changed my name, and I've been with them ever since. My parents have always been my mom has always been into the foster care and adoption. She's been doing it since the 70s. Her first child that she adopted was Thomas, and he was the first black child to be adopted by a white family. And it was a big deal because it was in the 70s, and everyone's like looking at her like, what are you, crazy? Like, she didn't care. My mom she went through all of whatever, and she's just a great, powerful woman, and I admire her. I owe her my life. Nine boys and 4 girls, and then my niece. So it's a lot of us. It was like too many of us in that house. I just remember it just being crazy. But it was always a lot of fun. Very different. You know, we fight like anybody else would fight, but I had it pretty good. Everything I ever needed. I was loved, and that's what you need to do for your kids. You have to just love them. I realized it really early on because half my family is black and the rest is white. I think I was around 4 or 5. So I'm like, Mommy, how come they're brown and I am white? So then she had to explain to me, well, you're adopted. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And then she's like, she didn't know how to explain it to me, you know, because you're a little kid. So it's like, we took you into our family. And then I'm like, well, what happened to my parents? And then she's like, well, your father passed away, and then your mom was sick. So I thought it was like, you know, a cough. I'm like, okay, so she couldn't take care of me because she's sick? So I didn't get it. But I understood it as I got older. I'm like, oh, she meant mentally ill, so she couldn't take care of me. I used to visit her when I was like 1, 2, and I think it stopped when I was 3 because she got lost, and she just never wanted to come again because she was too scared, you know, because her mental illness just was really taking over, I guess, at that point in her life. So I had no idea. I never even remember her face until I saw a picture, and I'm like, this lady kind of does look familiar, but I don't remember. My mother, Janet, would always write to me for every holiday, for everything and all this, that. I'm like, who is this Janet, Mom? And then she's like, well, it's your birth mother. And I'm like, well, why does she say Aunt Janet? How come she doesn't just say Janet? I don't know. She just always signed Aunt Janet. And I'm like, so that's my mom. And then I'm like, well, do I have sisters? And then she said, yes, you have 2. And I'm like, well, what are their names? And she said Cheryl and Elise. And then I'm like, well, do they look like me? She's like, I've seen one, and you kind of look like one, but not really the other. I finally understood it, I guess, 1st grade. Because all my classmates would ask me too, like, how come you're this way and they're that way? And I'm like, because I'm adopted. And they're like, oh. So I could explain it when I was around 6, 7. I felt about adoption that it was just different. It made me different than everyone else. It made me special. When I found my sisters, I was 15. It's not that I was thinking a lot about it, but it periodically, the thought would come to my mind, like, I wonder what my sisters are like. I wonder what they're doing. And I'm like, I went upstairs to the computer room and I asked my sister, I'm like, can you search for my mom and my sisters? And my mom and one sister came up because they were still living in New York. And I'm like, there it is. It's right there. When I asked my mom, like, should I call my sister or my mom? And she was like, no, you shouldn't. You don't know what they're gonna say, like, and she was right. I didn't know what they were gonna say. And just because she told me not to do it, I did it. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And I decided to call Cheryl because I'm like, I don't know if I can call my mom right now. Like, I don't know what would happen. It was during the day, like 1 o'clock, and then I called around 2. I built up the courage because I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. And I did, and then Cheryl picked up, and then I'm like, hi. Is this Cheryl Perrine? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, is your mother Janet Perrine? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, hi, I'm your sister Renee. And then she was like, silent for 10 minutes. She had to she's like, I'm gonna put the phone down, I'm sorry. She didn't know what to do. She was like, it was just very nerve-wracking for the both of us. I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. It was scary. I was scared. I didn't know what she was gonna say to me. When I first called her, I just was asking so many questions, just like, what's our nationality? How old are you? What do you look like? What school did you go to, you know? What's our grandparents like? And then she told me that Grandpa Pierre died, and I'm like, oh, sorry. I never even got to meet him either. But there's just so many things that I was asking her, and she was just answering me. And then she would ask me questions, you know, like, how many brothers and sisters do you have? How's school? And, you know, stuff like that. And it was just pretty much, we're catching up for 16 years that were lost. It's a long time.
My name is Cheryl, and I was reunited with Erin when I was 27, and that was 11, almost 12 years ago. I was pretty shocked. I actually just put the phone down when she called, and I went actually to the room to speak with Ron, who at the time I was dating. And so, you know, it was kind of interesting because I just really didn't know what to say, but I was happy. I just remember feeling happy, shocked. I didn't ever know if it was my place to
I did
make that phone call. And I didn't know, you know, but I didn't know you. You know, I didn't know that you would want to reach out to me at all. You don't know what that other person is thinking or how they're feeling, so.
I said that. I said the same thing.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was pretty much catching up 16 years of 15 years. I was 15.
There was a lot of questions. I think there was just a lot of questions, and I was answering questions.
I asked her so many questions, and she asked me a few questions, and it was pretty much me asking her the questions because I was just so curious, you know, and she knew the answers.
It definitely felt surreal when I was talking to her. You know, there was finally a voice. You know, I always wondered what happened to her, what kind of a family she grew up in, if she was happy. You know, I guess in a way I was sort of conflicted because she grew up in a way that I didn't grow up. We all had our issues, and we all had our different situations. So, you know, I was halfway glad that she didn't grow up with us in the first half because there was a lot of issues. But then at the same token, you know, she would tell me a lot of the issues that she was having at home. So then I almost felt sometimes I felt a little guilty, you know, that she was almost wanting to be a part of what she, you know, wasn't a part of. But I really didn't feel like, anytime I started to feel a little bit guilty, I always had to kind of remind myself that it wasn't my decision, you know. And you can fight all you want with your parents or grandparents about anything. They're ultimately going to have to do what's right for them. And it was actually ultimately our mother's decision, not, you know, our grandparents' decision. So, you know, in a lucid moment, Janet decided that this was the right thing for her. And the courts will always defend the mother. It's crazy how they will just defend them till no end. I didn't understand exactly what was going on. There was a lot going on at that time. Our father died. You know, there were some other, you know, complexities to our life that, you know, it was just, I was actually happy to be just going to live with Grandma and Grandpa, and there was going to be all of that change. So it was a lot. I mean, we were basically being uprooted from our home. Our father just died. I actually found him. I was dealing with some of those feelings. Like, it was just a lot. And so I really didn't completely understand it. Even though I was 11 going on 12, it just was just, I guess, in my family, it's very just matter of fact in that respect. But I thought about her a lot. I actually wrote a poem about her when I was very young. So all of this happened when I was 11 going on 12. So I was very curious about what happened to her. And I thought about her a lot. Janet was in the mental hospital at that point. I mean, obviously she was unable and, you know, unfit to care for an infant. So in that respect, you know, they basically had to put her into the foster system at that time because it's never going to be this situation. Because while everything was happening, to remember, she was born the day my dad was being buried. My grandparents lost their son. This is.
It was a hard time.
It was just a lot going on. I mean, I don't really know. I don't think that my grandparents honestly could handle it. My aunt and uncle had to come, and basically they you know, my uncle at that point, they were living in Virginia. They weren't even here. They were gonna move their way up this way, but that was really to help out with teenagers. I mean, these people were like 65 years old, retired. They already raised their kids, like, you know, and they were about to start all over for the most part. And so, you know, I guess I always just thought of it that way, like they could handle what they could handle. And
the baby was,
and that the baby was going to be in better hands with somebody who could, you know.
I just remember Janet, like, making it adamant. It's like, I want Pat Oschlager to take care of my daughter. Pat Oschlager, nobody else. And that happened. She finally signed the papers when I was 3, and that's when I officially got adopted, at 3.
She was born at the time where we were getting to press the reset button in our lives. You know, so for that, I would say, yeah, it would have been really nice if you had grown up in that household. But all the other stuff, like the wondering about Janet and Bill, you know how I feel about that.
Yep.
So that's just not something I would wish on anybody. So, and I'm actually happy that you came into the world at the time that you did, because I think you're a better person for not knowing him.
I remember you saying that. We met at the Bayshore Mountain in New York because, you know, she was living in New York. Elise was visiting for that day, I think. She wanted to meet me too, and it was a nerve-wracking day. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna meet my sisters for the first day. Like, I had talked to them on the phone. It's not really the same when you actually go meet them. I put up walls sometimes and I'm like, I don't know, is this safe? But I was nervous, but I was also very, very excited. I'm like, wow, I'm actually gonna meet my sisters today.
I didn't really have any expectations of how it was gonna be, because similar to the way my personality is in general, it's just that I don't really, I put up walls too, in some respects, especially with a new situation, especially one like this. I'm like, I don't really know how this is gonna go. I hope it goes well. And I hope that we can stay in touch and we can, you know, continue a relationship. But I don't know. I thought maybe she was gonna yell at us. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. You know, she may have been like, oh, it's me. And, you know, in some respects, like, you know, when you can't put things into perspective about why, you know, things have happened to you in your life, you know, you can tend to, you know, go, maybe she was gonna be like, you know, I didn't know. So I was apprehensive too. I was a little bit, you know, anxious. Elise and I were anxious, and it was a relief because she's very sweet.
Thank you.
Well, my first reaction was there's like a mini me out there. Like, wow, like that's pretty crazy. But it was great. It was obviously very emotional. I was excited. I was excited for what she was open to having a relationship, and I was excited that we were all together meeting her, and Elise was open too, and it was just nice. I don't know. We kind of like figured out what each other. We have commonalities. She wanted to know a lot more, and I think when you're obviously in person and you're able to connect in that way, it's it's a little bit easier than being over the phone. It was a little awkward, I think, at times too. I mean, certainly it's a lot to take in, but it was good. It was good, and we continued to meet up, and I remember being excited to go out and do your prom makeup.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
Grandma came with me.
Grandma.
That was nice.
I still have that picture.
Yeah, but it was like, it felt good to be open, that you had an open household, and I thought your mom was amazing.
Yeah, she loves you.
I got a chance to meet her, and
she says hi, by the way.
and see like what kind of what kind of a household she did grow up in, and what I felt was, while I had my judgments, because I only knew what I knew. Remember, I didn't grow up in a household of 19. I didn't grow up in and you would tell me a lot of stories about the issues you were having there, so I was just kind of like already going in with sort of a judgmental kind of, but when I met her mom, I was like, wow, she's a really amazing person. And I just remember leaving there just feeling like, okay, so some of my questions were answered about how she grew up. I knew she had a rock in that house, and that was
my mom.
It was good to see.
Definitely my mom.
Because I had one, and that was my grandma. And so I kind of felt like, in that respect, like it was good. And she got a chance to get to know Elaine, grandma.
I did.
So that was good.
I remember the first time I met grandma, she's like, oh my gosh, you're a parade. That was the first words that came out of her mouth. I was like, yes, I am. Or I was, Now I'm an Ashlager, but whatever.
Well, I'm a Sevilla now. I'm not even a parade.
I know.
We all change our name. It's okay.
The name is just what it is. We are who we are. After we met, I was like, it was kind of like a relief. It's like, wow, I did it. I didn't die. My heart didn't stop. But it was a great experience. I was like, wow, I just met my sisters. It was like, and I would tell my mom, like, I see a lot of similarities between us. Like, Elise was really picky. I'm like, I'm really picky, and like, I look a little like Cheryl, and it was just and you were showing me pictures. I remember it was just like, it was all a lot to take in. It was a lot to take in. So, I don't know. I enjoyed it.
She was very sweet, and I felt like, she's very curious, and she just wanted to know more, and I think we were able to help her through some of that and give her some closure. And that's just not something that everybody gets a chance to have, and so I was happy to be able to be a part of that. And I don't know that you have closure. You bring things up.
Sometimes I do still bring things up, but as I've gotten older, I think the closure is there. I think it's already there. It's like, I don't really need to know anymore. I already have my relationship with you and Elise, and I talk to you, and I'm gonna keep talking to you. So that's just how I feel about that. I feel grateful for reuniting with them. Yes, 100%.
I feel very grateful for it, because as I mentioned, it's just like, I wouldn't want anybody to be out there kind of wondering about what their relationship could be like, and whether they could have one or not, and to be so, nervous and scared. And it's taken time. It's taken a while. It's taken years to build it up, as we've been through our,
many different things.
Many different things as you go, and so it's been. I'm very grateful to have connected.
What I think about is if my father never died. Because he was 39, he had a heart attack. He shouldn't have died that young. Like, if he didn't die, I would have grown up with him over in Manorville with my sisters. And they're like, and that's why they tell me all the time, like, it's better that you didn't. Because he was losing the house, I think, and he was gonna go move in with his mom, grandma, again. So I would have been living with, yeah, you're right, my grandparents. When I was 16, Janet died, so I didn't get to see her again. She was undergoing chemotherapy. My mom had breast cancer. I guess they had, taken it out surgery-wise, but the chemotherapy eventually gave her a heart failure, so I guess heart attack again.
I helped her through chemo, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, I didn't want to do it. So many days I'd say, oh, I'm just not gonna go. I'm gonna cancel. But I knew, like, she at least needed somebody, and no one else really wanted anything to do with her brother. She pushed everybody away, but again, she was mentally ill. It's kind of like, did she even really have a choice in that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why everything happened the way that it did, because nobody wanted to deal with her.
When I wasn't able to meet my mom, I was kind of sad. I'm like, wow, I can't talk to her. I don't know what she's gonna be like, I only knew her through letters, and she seemed really sweet through those letters, and that's how I remember her, but I was told otherwise by my sisters. I'm like, Erin, she wasn't that nice. I'm like, oh, okay. I think the second time we met was when my mom died, so it wasn't a good time. So we all went to that funeral, and then that's when I met some more family members, and like, who is this? You look like a parade. That's when I met my grandma, and I'm like, yes, I'm Renee, hi. Then I met my uncles, I met pretty much all my uncles, and some of my cousins, and my grandma. That was the first day at a funeral. So it wasn't the happiest, but it was like bittersweet. It's bittersweet. Mm-hmm. When I started reading the letters that my mom had wrote me a long time ago, when I moved out of my house, she wrote that she liked to sing, and it touched me because I like to sing, and I guess I got that from her, the singing part, and it's good to know, it's good that I had some type of quality that was positive from her, so it just made me feel really good. And I was crying because it touched me in a way I just didn't know. And I've read them before, but I guess reading it as I'm older, I'm like, I actually understand it. So it kind of got me in the feels. I remember I was a little upset one day with my grandma, and because she was showing me all these photo albums with everyone looking so happy in the pictures, and I wasn't there, and I'm like, I could have been there, because my mom, she's 71 and she's still taking care of kids. Like, there's no excuse for you being too old to take on a baby. So I kind of feel bad about that, but other than that, I'm like, they made their choice. They felt what they needed to do was right, and it still kind of hurt, but I can't change what happened. I still found my sisters. I still got to reconnect with them. I reconnected with my grandma. So it's like, it all happens for a reason. I remember when I was looking at the video, she was kind of like, well, if you're gonna cry, I guess I should take these away. Like, I guess she wasn't really understanding how it made me feel. I was kind of like the black sheep, but like, again, my sisters have told me, like, it's better off that you didn't grow up in that environment, Erin. It's better off you were loved. We weren't loved, that's what they said. Only by the grandparents.
I think it took time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was...
Because it was new. It was like brand new. Like when we first met each other, it was just brand new. You can't just instantly be like, oh wow, we're exactly the same. No, That's not how it worked.
I don't think we had an instant connection. I think we developed a connection over time.
Because there was such a big gap.
In age, yeah, and it does make a huge difference. In fact, our father and our uncle are actually the same age difference. And I know that
Of me and you?
Mm-hmm, yeah. And I think they certainly took very different paths in life, and, you know, they weren't the closest. And, you know, that age difference will, I guess, do that. You know, that's a tough age gap. 11 years is a lot. So.
We call once a month, maybe. Sometimes it'd be a little longer, because, you know, life does get in the way. But we visited enough. I slept over your house a couple times. We went to the city and hung out. What else? So many years went by.
And we stayed in touch. I think, like you said, there was times where long periods of time would go by, and I think that might have just been, like you said, like life hurt, you know, life and my life were two kind of different trajectories, and obviously then we moved here.
In our life.
Yeah, and it was like kind of hard because I'm like, oh, she's doing teenager things, and I'm so wise, you know, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
No, but she was, you know, you were out having your fun, I was doing my thing, so there would be time that would go by to where we didn't talk as much. So even now, it's hard to find time, you know, to stay on the phone as long as I'd like to.
That's why Facebook's good.
It is. So it's been nice having it. Yeah. You get a peek behind the tent of how things are going in your life.
Like pictures, or I'll say something, and then if something like is really bothering me, I'll like let you know. I would always let you know, but Facebook keeps us in touch. And now I'm in New York and she's in Florida. It's like she was closer before, but now she's not. But that's okay. There's always an airplane away. The last time I saw her was probably October, right?
Yeah, it was the end of September.
But then before that was at her wedding, which was 4 years ago.
Almost
4 years ago.
3.5.
So yeah, a little time to go by, but I was still talking to her and stuff. I guess I didn't really feel closure until maybe when my mom died. And that was 11 years ago? 11 years ago? So yeah, 10 years ago maybe. I'm like, I'll never meet her, so I guess that's the end of it. Like, that was it. But I always have my sisters right there, and they tell me the things that they remember and they don't want to remember. So, yeah. Well, when it comes to people looking for their other, like their real family, like I said, not everyone gives their information. Like, the parents will just be like, you're my daughter, you're my son, that's it. I was lucky enough that they gave me that information. And like I said, I still was connecting with my mom. She was giving me letters all the time. So that's where those questions were raised. I guarantee it, if she never wrote me, I would never have asked. I mean, I would have asked, why am I white? Why are they brown? But other than that, that would have been the end of it. So I think my mom is the one who pretty much opened the door. Because it always made me wonder, where are my sisters? Where's everyone else, you know? So if I'm gonna give advice, be like, if you know, if you're brave enough, take that chance. You never know what's gonna happen. Don't be afraid.
I think the advice I would give is not to be afraid, not to be scared, because you just never know who's on the other end of the phone. But you have to be ready and open to, you know,
anything.
Right, for anything. And I'd just say to think positively about it, because if you don't, then you just miss out on an opportunity to have a great relationship in your life. So it does force people to think about decisions that they have made. So that's, sometimes not welcome. Some people just want to forget and move on. Not that I don't think you could ever do that, but I just say be open.
Adoption means to me taking in someone else's child as your own and treating them as such. Some adopted families don't even release information about who they were, where they came from, even what your old name was. So I was very lucky to have the parents that I did, and they told me all the things that they did, or else I would never have found out who I was, before. Never would have met my sisters. I'm happy that I was adopted because I'm different than, there's many, many millions of people who are adopted, but everyone's story is different. Like, everyone that was adopted in my family has a different background. Bad. Most of them really bad, actually. Mine was not the worst. I feel like if more people like my parents can adopt, more children, then I think there would be a lot more happy children in the world. I had two parents that actually loved me and provided everything I needed. So I am happy. It makes me feel special. I wish I could tell my mom that right now. If she was here, she would probably be crying, like, oh, Erin. I'm like, yeah. I'm trying to be a good daughter.